Welcome to Less Than 12 Parsecs, the fastest Star Wars podcast in the galaxy. Now here's your host, Tim McMahon.
Who's the leader of the club that's made for you and me? M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E.
So, it was 4 years ago today that Disney purchased Lucasfilm. I'm not going to go into the history of this purchase because I figured that if you're listening to a podcast like this, you most likely already know all the details. Instead, I'm going to look back at the good and bad aspects of this historic business transaction. Good, we're getting so many more Star Wars movies. I've said it before, and I will say it again, film is the heart and soul of the Star Wars franchise. While it's great that we have ancillary products and stories told through novels, comics, and games, the movies will always be the DNA of Star Wars. Star Wars is movies, and movies we are getting. Sure, there was some criticism leveled at The Force Awakens, some saying that it was overly reliant on nostalgia. I thought its heart was in the right place, and I found it absolutely enjoyable. Sometimes you have to take a step back before moving forward. And heck, if Episode 7 wasn't your cup of tea, just sit back. There'll be a new movie every year for the foreseeable future, so there's sure to be something coming down the pike that's more to your tastes. Bad. Lucasfilm too quickly cut the connection with their past before jumping into the future. After the sale, the new Lucasfilm made some decisions that angered many fans. They closed down LucasArts. And sure, LucasArts wasn't the gaming giant it once had been. There were many of us looking forward to the games that had already been teased, like 1313. Next, they canceled the Clone Wars before it was done telling its story. Yes, Rebels has turned into Clone Wars 2.0, but in their rush to move away from the prequel trilogy, the new management didn't allow, what some would say was the saving grace of the prequel era, a chance to wrap up properly. Then, there was the move to end the expanded universe storyline and rebrand it Legends. Man oh man, did this cause so much hate and anger online. And if you look into the darkest corners of the interwebs today, you will still find pockets of resentment about this decision. Heck, I'll admit I was upset at first, but I understand why the decision was made. That said, they should have given fans of the novels and comics one last storyline to wrap up all the hanging threads in the old EU. Good. Star Wars is everywhere. Hey, don't get me wrong, Star Wars has always been everywhere, but I get the impression that it's much more everywhere now. Does that make any sense? No, let me try to explain. See, Disney is a giant corporation, and while many may find this a negative thing, they have the money and reach to spread the gospel of Lucas unlike any time previously. For example, they're making moves to bring Star Wars to China where it hasn't been a cultural touchstone in the past. That's billions of new fans. And here in the States, Disney owns multiple television networks, from ABC to ESPN to their plethora of kids networks. You're seeing Star Wars pop up all over your dial now. And then there's the massive Star Wars land that's coming to Disney Park soon. Don't tell me you're not already planning your vacation to that. But it's not just the quantity of Star Wars, it's the quality. Disney has done very well with their other acquisitions, Pixar, Marvel, and the Muppets. Well, maybe not so much in that last one in my opinion, but anyway. And this trend, in my opinion, is continuing with Star Wars. What they've produced so far has been top-notch, for the most part. Now for the last point, I'm not going to say bad, but I am going to withhold judgment for now. It's the idea that everything is canon now. I am of the opinion that we as nerds focus too much on the idea of canon. Before we ask, is it canon, we should be asking, is it a good story? I do believe that canon is important in the films. Everything else, not so much. As long as the story doesn't contradict what's in the films, it's fine by me. Now, I know I'm in the minority here, but I worry that the all is canon theory is going to bite Lucasfilm in the butt down the road. The old EU was full of retcons and contradictions, and in a way that was part of its charm. While the story group is working hard to prevent this from happening again in the modern era of Star Wars, I do believe it will happen eventually. I'll wait and see how Lucasfilm handles these issues when they happen down the road, before I decide if this all is canon edict is a good thing or a bad. So, 2 good things, 1 bad, and 1 undecided for now. What do you think is good or bad about the Lucasfilm sale to Disney? Do you think we're living in a golden era of Star Wars? Or did George sell his children to white slavers? His phrase, not mine. I want to know. Email me at 12parsecs.podcast@gmail.com or connect with me anywhere on social media. Thanks for listening. Hootini!
Now it's time to say goodbye to all our company. M-I-C.
See you real soon.
K-E-Y.
Why? Because we like you.
You've been listening to Less Than 12 Parsecs, the fastest Star Wars podcast in the galaxy, part of the expanded Fandomverse network of shows. For links and show notes, visit our website, TwelveParsecsPodcast.com. Follow Less Than 12 Parsecs on Twitter at 12parpod, on Instagram at 12ParsecsPodcast, on Tumblr at 12ParsecsPodcast, and find us on Facebook as well. And please let us know what you think. Email us at 12ParsecsPodcast@gmail.com.